Hey, people, if you go over to Wikipedia and look up the meaning and origin of mariachi, you're going to leave the page without knowing the meaning or origin. They say the origin of the word is disputed, but prominent theories attribute to deep roots. One says it comes from the wood used to make the dance platform. Another states that it comes from the tree, the name of the wood that was used, which looks nothing like mariachi. And another says it come from a local image, the Maria, the Mary H. The most distant reference documented 100 certificates of baptism, burials, and marriages in which the mariachi ranch appears, from 1832 to 1850. It was once thought to have derived from the French word for marriage, a mariage, dating from the French intervention in Mexico in 1860s, until they found these writings were older. It was being used before the French got there. They found this letter dated 1852 from the Catholic priest Cosme Santana to the Archbishop, and he was complaining about the noise as well as the drinking and gambling antics of the mariachis. And so that lets you know it's either a people or an act. They'll tell you that before the Spanish got there, the indigenous people were playing with rattles and drums, flutes and conch shell horns, until Jubal got there with violins and guitars and harps and brass instruments. So one of the musical styles that evolved from this was called the son, and a popular one was called the Son of Yellow Sense. And the best known song referred to the mariachi national anthem is La Negra, the black sun. And so like all cultures, they were worshiping total eclipse of the sun. And the modern mariachi developed from the sun style. So it's a big page, but I'm pretty sure I can't learn anything else by reading down. But this is the clue right here. This H, if they're reading the Greek, this would be a Edda. And this Chi lets me know that they're reading Hebrew, Chi. And so what happened, they done totally lost the meaning of this word and the origin, trying to hide the ancient writings. Not everybody was supposed to be able to read. And so when public schools started, they had to start changing language. And 300 years after this, in 1935, about the time Mom was starting school, both her parents were educated in Quebec and spoke French. She said they couldn't help her with the homework because they changed the symbols. The letters didn't resemble. That's the first trick to indoctrinating the kids, change the symbols so your parents don't know what you're reading. And so about in this time, 1930s, they were trying to get all kids indoctrinated. They didn't want them home reading the books they had. And the National Guard busted in and stole children out of the Louisiana swamp, shot their parents if they fought back to make sure they had all been indoctrinated. They didn't want people reading the old books anymore. So most people would interpret this as Maria, the motion, the ocean, the mariner, the motion, and Chi of all life. And he named her Chi because she was the mother of all life, Maria Chi, the motion of all life. But when you find this in the Hebrew, they're going to interpret this these days as the brother and the sayer. The sayer is the one that come out and said what the king said. The king didn't come out there himself. Come out on the street corner, the sayer brother. You see that here, the mariachi, a brother. So this is sitting in the longest line of this poem when Abraham rescues Lot. And Lot, he was more of loot, the loot, L-O-U-T. To wife and what, the W reading over here, W-I-F-H, W-I-F-E, and the W-A-T. The wife what loot, what rocks Benachi. The wife what loot, what rocks Benachi. And so Benachi, that's tits, the hill of the breast, the mountain. And not just any mountain, but this mountain that looks like a tit. This is a Ben stone. They say they were on top of the pyramids, but they want him found beside them. That would be your son, Ben. And Benachi would be all these one-titted creatures. Ben, your being, your child, and of the brother, your brother's children, Benachi. Your brother had all them freaky children. And the wife what loot, what rocks of Benachi, Everum whilst, why, who is beside 'em. Double BBISDM, and whoever is by Sodom. And whilst is to shrink back. And so the double vav is reading is a why here. Why, who, how, who is beside 'em, by Sodom. So this is out of context, and I'll get more in this context, but it's talking about going down the rabbit hole. And your wife, what loot, what she has, what rocks of Benachi, your half sister. And so it's talk about all the old ancient Egyptian gods all marrying their sister and their half sister, and the kings doing the same thing. And what rocks of Benachi, a single tit, so she's a half sister. Ever whilst, to shrink back. To whilst, why, who, how, who, or why the ways by Sodom. Sodom means any unnatural sex act. They done figured out that the bloodline is shrinking back. It's whilst, it's departing. The whilst, why, the ways by Sodom. And then it starts this poem right underneath here. And so you might read this as why in the flight, in the flight, one who escaped. And some people are reading this YB, the AE turns into the ES, and who be split, the one that escaped, who that done left, and why be split, and why God laborum, the ovary. The Hebrews are the ovaries. That was the most ancient symbol of Virgo, was the ovaries. And she was split some long time ago. There was no Libra. And it used to be the scorpion was nipping at her heels until she throwed her bra down, Libra, and they created Libra. And it has to do with us cruising through the universe, and the stars are shrinking away and getting tighter in the back, and they're expanding in front of us. And so they had to add this sign in. And so that's where it was split, right between Virgo and Scorpio. They added Libra. And so I believe this GD is pronounced as could, as a CD, and could, and told, and yes you may, why could. And why be split, why could laborum the ovary. And who is skin veiling Myers of mariachi. And so it's talking about Set here. It's not a rabbit hole, but it's Set's hole. Set's the one that rode on the front of the boat with Ra and fought Apep at night. And so Set's a aardvark, and it means earth pig or ground pig. So aardvark is the ancient Hebrew name. And so, it's got a pig skin on it, and it's been admired by the mariachi. And Meyer, double M is a M-I-R, and then the A-E is E-S, the Myers, to to admire something, to admire. And Myers, a mariachi. And so I believe this just means a marriage, but not a marriage with a G, achi, a hookup, a mariachi. It means of the wed, to marry them together, a mariachi. And so all the stars and the planets, they got married, but not for a long time. They always move around. And so a mariachi, that's just a hookup. And why be split? why could labor the ovary, and to have a child. And so this is the child of Judah, the judicial branch. That's why them scales are there. And labrum the ovary, the work of the ovaries. And who was skin veiling Myers? A mariachi. And a mariachi of Asclavachi. A mariachi Asclavachi on Rombali in writ ever from. In the writ ever from. And so the mariachi is the wedding, and Asclavachi is the devil's music. That's a pentatonic scale. That's what they call the devil's music. That's where all rock and roll come from, the pentatonic scale. In Carnatic music, Clavachi is approximated as Valachi. It's the marriage of a pentatonic scale on a stringed instrument. A mariachi Asclavachi Anna Romboli. And Anna Romboli. And this comes from, the road from Bali. And so Bali was an island. And so that's Rombali. It's the motion, the waves. Ru is the road or the route to. It's however you get there. And Bali or Vali, is either the offerings or the waves. And being the Hebrew uses the same letter for both the Vali and the Bali, makes me think it means both. And all the languages from all corners, say that it's an island. In the Czech, in the Catalan. In why be split? Who could labor the ovary? And whose skin veiling Myers a mariachi? The skin veiling like a banjo or a lute. You live in your skin. Why be split? Who could labor the ovary? And whose skin veiling Myers a mariachi? Asclavachi, in a pentatonic scale on a stringed instrument, on a rombali, on the route of motion, on the route of waves, in right ever from, in always ever from. So on the route from Bali, the ways to Bali, you're riding on the ocean, the waves. If you look up the word rumba, you see it's used for a synonym to party in Cuba. You'll see that the origin of the rumba remains unknown. Everything that comes out of the Hebrew Bible is unknown. And one will say that it derives from rumbo, meaning uproar, and previously pomp, and also the course of a ship, the route, the ru from Bali, of the route to an island, the course of a ship, and on a ru, on the route from the island, on course of a ship. And so this in writ, it was in the writings, but it's also in rid, to get rid of, in rid everum. And so to put this better in context, they say it's Lot seized by the four kings. And it's now the valley of Siddim was full of pits, asphalt. And so there was no was full of. It's just now the valley of Siddim, pits, asphalt. And so pits, that was the clue. Pit bulls, they'll dig holes all up in the yard. But so does in aardvark. And so aardvark, is a ard, then the earth pig, the aardvark. And so the art is playing on it, not just an aardvark, but in the art of Bart, in art Bart, in the aardvark. And they're known for digging pits. They're coming from this area here, which would be south of Egypt. So it tells me that the Hyksos came from this area. And so when the valley of Siddim was full of pits, this is what it's talking about. Oh, aardvark pits. And so they're getting this was full of over here. It's coming from this word here. And this, festum, infested. And vom, that means from. And so the valley is from Q, from center. But this vom is, to see from, and festum, and from festum of Bart, and it was full of pits in the valley of Sodom. And Bart come ruins, and so that's the pits, is the ruins. They done ruined the earth and dug pits all through it. Vom festum Bartvarts, come ruins 'em. Come ruins 'em, licks 'em. Everything that they touch. They lick the ants, them ruins 'em, licks 'em. And Amora, and love, why fell, was me. And I fell in love with 'em. Amora, and love. And love who fell was me. And I fell in love. As soon as I seen I had to have it. And when saw him, and when saw him here in Sioux, and I chased him down his hole. They're a nocturnal animal. They down in the hole all day, come out to hunt at night. And so he fell in love because he was like me, he was an astrologer. He'd come out at night and looked at the stars, and vom festum in Artvart, in the Vard, Ard, A-R-D-V-A-R-T, in Aardvart. The come ruins 'em, licks 'em, come ruins 'em, licks 'em. And so Aardvark, he married Ant. And so these tar pits, that's why the Aardvark's got a black face. But the word for tar was it too, I-T-U. And it's where your word bitumen come from, B-I-T-U, in it too. Everything, it means sticky. Everything it comes near it sticks to. But among Aardvark's consorts was Annette. And she's a Benachi. But she was also your aunt, the A-N-T, the ant-at, not Annette, but the ant-at. And from festum in Aardvart, come ruins 'em, licks 'em, and love, and Amora who fell, and love who fell was me, when saw 'em here in Sioux. So this might be the writings, speaking as the ant, the one that fell in love. And the wife Wetzel rock Sodom. And Amor. Amor is love, but it's also, to tie up, and it's also the pyramid. And Amor Wetzel a cell, to a cell muy, to a cell much. A good food, to a sell muil coup, a muchel coup. And so the ant, in Hebrew is your aunt. Was the goddess associated with warfare and hunting. That's about all the ants do. Best known from Ergatic texts, and most researchers assume that she originated in the Amorite culture. The Amorites were the sayers, a sayer. One of the people east of Canaan. The east, the Fed's canon, the Fed's writings. A Fed's sister, Achi. So it helps to read all these old writings about what they have to say about how they read these writings. But just remember, you have to break down every word, because that's what these are all words. They're not gods. Gods are words. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. And read up on Set, and just remember that all these Egyptologists, they don't understand the writings either. If they would learn to read the Hebrew, they would better understand the Egyptian, the Coptan, And so read it and stop and break down every word. You think you know what these words mean, but the red land, red is Hadam, and Hadam art, and Hadam earth, and Hadam art. The red writings, Hadam art. The old was the red. The red was coming from the old English, from the Adam, and the black is the new language, in which changed up, not always the same. He was Lord of the Adam, the old art. And so when you read in here, you find out that he was the most ancient. And his offspring was the dog creatures, the Anubis and Weepawet, and Sobek, the crocodile head, and Maga. And they don't have a clue what Maga means. But he had a relationship with his aunt, a foreign goddess, his aunt. And from that relationship come Maga. And so they really don't even know how to pronounce Set. But Set had sexually abused the hours, sexually abused the hours. That's when you're out all night, nocturnal, and screw all day. And you see him here pictured most, on the Rombali, on the route to Bali, on the waves. And so he had kind of drifted off. They found other gods. And it was during the second intermediate period when the Hyksos, meaning the rulers of foreign lands, gained control of Egypt, and they chose Set. They brought Set back, which coincides with a video that I watched about 10 years ago, where a guy was looking up the etymology of the word Jesus, which in Latin, G, in Greek, G is the earth, and Zeus is a pig, the earth pig. So I got a message in an email from a long-time viewer and asked me if I removed his message. Doesn't see it, so it probably had a link in it, and I blocked that setting a long time ago to get rid of the bots, and now I can't figure out how to turn it back on. So if you put a link in your message, it doesn't even show me. I have to go searching into my channel. If I happen to stumble upon it, I have to give it a thumbs up before it'll show. So I don't always find them. And so Alphanumeric has my email, and I don't put it anywhere, afraid the bots will get it. And I just now noticed that I used to have a PayPal button here, and it looked like YouTube removed them. But if you throw 50 cents in this PayPal, I'll return you this old Torah that I think is the easiest to read when you're beginning to remember what the letters meaning. The letters kind of resemble the older picture. And you'll have my email on there then. But that doesn't mean that I can or will answer all your questions. I prefer any questions, to be posted here on YouTube. So when I answer them, everybody can see. And I'm sure there's some embarrassment in a lot of the questions, but hey, look at the embarrassment that I've been going through for years trying to figure out this language, and seeing something and coming back after I watched the movie and see that I had read it totally wrong. But I feel it's paid off. I'm getting much better. A lot of writings I could read them one time now and I'll have it, where I used to have to read something 20 times before I could start to make a movie on it. But yeah, everything you read here, you have to go back to the top, put everything in context. And so the biggest context is this first word of the Bible that they left off, the Torah Victable Boonish. And the Torah, the travels I could do without my boonies. And it means a walk through the city. He's writing what's on the wall in Egypt. And so this would be the first 5 books of the Bible, all came off the wall in Egypt. And I'm going to cut this off here. Have a good day.